I want to talk a little bit about the purpose of prayer meetings. It's not just for biblical understanding of a text. Also, it's more, I believe, for community and for building character together, helping each other to live the Christian life together. I was once asked, if I had a choice, would I be a bowling ball or a balloon to represent my faith and my walk with Christ? Does a bowling ball represent my walk better than a balloon or a balloon? And choose. And so I thought about this. The bowling ball's solid. This is my faith. I'm not going to move from it. It's solid. Okay. Whereas balloons sort of float around a bit and the wind blows it here and there. But so I'll be a bowling ball. And it's got holes in the ball. And that at least tells you there's faults in this bowling ball. It's not all perfectly complete. And so that's good too, because I want to be solid for the faith, but I also want to recognize my weaknesses and the holes in my life. And then I thought, but wait a minute, when my grandchildren come to visit the house, the last thing I would want to be is a bowling ball, because if they got hold of it, there would be carnage. And when you go bowling and you bowl the ball, it's going perfectly down, and there's a little bunch of people down the end there waiting to talk, and smash, boom, things smashed everywhere, and everybody shouts, claps if you got them all down, or if you missed one or two. So I thought, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be a falling ball Christian that knocks people all over the place. I want to be much more friendly. And so I thought, well, instead of a bowling ball, let me be a balloon. And what I like about balloons is kids love balloons. Our grandchildren come, we've got a few balloons, and they're scattered around the house, and they love to find them. They'll crawl. And if you've got a hyperactive kid, let him go find the balloon, and he'll hunt for it under the table, under the chairs, until he comes up with this balloon and then begins to play. And they pat it across, and the balloon doesn't harm anything. It doesn't break anything. In fact, it makes them laugh and enjoy each other's company. And that's what I want to be also as a Christian. So actually, I don't want to be a bowling ball or a balloon. I want to be both. And I think there are times when we have to do that. We have to say, Lord, help my character to be both winning, but also solid. And so my talk this evening is about criticizing ourselves. And Wesley was a very strong critic of character. When he established groups, and he would travel all over England, preaching in halls and in churches where he could find. He was an Anglican, but he became the founder of Methodists because he was so methodical. When he had his groups, he would teach them all. First of all, the first 3 rules. These are John Wesley's 3 rules. 1, do no harm. Avoid evil. What a good rule. 2, do good. Perform acts of mercy and charity. What a good rule. And then thirdly, stay in love with God. And that was his 3 rules. And I really like that. But he was quite critical of how you do this. And when he started a new group, he would give them these questions when they met together, particularly during the week. If it was on worship on the weekend, they would worship and there would be somebody preaching the word. But during the week, like a prayer meeting like we have now, it was a time of questions and asking questions. And I am going to ask you some of these questions. And if you would like to respond, please do. And maybe we can help each other. All right? Because they're tough questions. Okay. Am I consciously or unconsciously creating the impression that I am better than I really am? In other words, am I a hypocrite? Wesley knew how to swing the thing into touching the personal life. And I wonder how you would answer that question. Are you unconsciously or consciously creating the impression that I am better than I really am? I am a hypocrite. This question, when I read it, I thought, boy, I'm a hypocrite. I know there are parts in my life that are just way off beam. And it would be interesting if we opened this meeting to answering the questions like that, but there's 22 of them, all right? So hold on, some of them are going to be tough. Okay, number 2, do I confidentially pass on to another what is told to me in confidence? I'm told something confidentially, and do I pass it on to someone else and say to them, please be confidential? And then I tell them, can I be trusted? That question's helped me to think. I've got to be very careful, particularly as a pastor. You get people come and talk to you. I've got a couple of people talking to me about the breakdown in their homes, Adventist families. And I've got to be very, very careful because I do not want to break confidences, because that's what enables them to trust me to talk about some of the issues. And some of the people I deal with are pastors whose marriages are in serious trouble. But I can't tell anybody, go sort this couple out, please, because they have said to me, Llew, please keep this confidential. And I can understand why. And pastors need to learn how to say, I want to be confidential, but if it's for your good, I will ask you first before I tell any other person. It's not always easy to do. And question number 3 is, can I be trusted? Number 4, am I a slave to dress, friends, work, or habits? Good question. And maybe back in those days when they didn't know anything about tobacco, maybe they were thinking, oh, this is not a good habit. It doesn't feel like it. And am I a slave to it? Yes, I am. And confidential, personally work with Jesus and the Spirit to do the right thing. Number 5, am I self-conscious, self-pitying, or self-justifying? I'm not sure of everything that John Wesley had in mind in that question. Am I self-conscious? People say to me, Llew, how are you feeling today? You got the sermon this morning. And I go, boy, I'm nervous. I really do get nervous when I'm about to preach. But is that because I'm just self-conscious or self-pitying or self-justifying? Question number 6, did the Bible live in me today? There's a good question to ask yourself. Did the Bible live in me today? What did the Bible see in me today? Do you pray every day, Lord, help me to reveal your character and reveal the Bible and how I live today? Number 7, do I give the Bible time to speak to me every day? In other words, do I study my Bible every day? And I have to confess that there are days when I don't. But I was so impressed with this concept that I know Karen spends an hour, at least an hour each day, reading her Bible. And yesterday I began, I'm in the book of Joshua. And what I'm doing is I'm reading each chapter, and then I break it down to segments and put an outline. And the outline's easy to remember. And I'm going to continue working with that. See if I can, in fact, memorize the book, not word for word, but memorize where each section has a contribution to make and what it's about. So somebody can say to me, Llew, what happened to the people on the eastern side of the River Jordan when the others went into to conquer the land? And I can say it's in Joshua chapter 1, the latter part, where he said to them, come and help us fight the battle, and then you can come back, but the land belongs to you already. Am I enjoying prayer? Currently I spend at least an hour each evening in prayer. And there are times when I must confess, I fall asleep while we're praying. And I think Karen does sometimes as well. We're just so tired at the end of the evening and we're praying. But am I enjoying prayer? If Jesus actually came amongst us and sat with us, would I enjoy it more? Why aren't I inviting Jesus into our prayer meetings and prayer time?
Can I ask a question, please?
Sorry, please speak up.
Hey, can I ask a question? I'm
Yes.
stuck on the self-conscious bit that you were talking about earlier.
Yes.
In my understanding, when we're talking about being self-conscious, we're being aware of, like it's being aware of oneself per se. Is it a bad thing to be aware of oneself? I mean, I'm thinking maybe being self-conscious about maybe being loud in a room type of thing. Surely it's not a bad thing if I'm being self-conscious that, okay, if I'm going to pick up a call, I need to excuse myself, and maybe go outside and allow other people to have that peace of mind or whatever, or continue the way they were, or maybe self-conscious in terms of dress code. I need to dress in a way that is maybe probably not too revealing or whatever. I need to be comfortable with myself and also ensure that other people are comfortable, whatever. Uh, is it such a bad thing? Maybe I'm lost there in terms of, what are we saying about being self-conscious? I can relate to the prayer bits. I'm just not sure I'm following with the self-consciousness. Are we saying it's a bad thing? Are we saying we should be self-conscious? What exactly are we saying with it?
Um, Thank you. What is CFO?
Yeah.
That's a good discussion point, and I'm not sure I know what Wesley meant by that. It's one of the questions he put, and it, just discussing it like you're talking about is very helpful. Let me tell you something. When Karen and I went to work in Egypt, and I was the field president there, and I had just finished a degree in leadership, and one of the things that I'd learned in leadership is that we must be self-critical, be willing to say, did I do the best thing I could? Like, did I represent the Bible today? Did I speak? Did I allow the Bible to speak to me? And what we did was everybody was advised to make a set of values. This is what I value. And that's one of the things I did before I went to Egypt. These are my 6 values. I'm very excited about what I'm doing. Be excited about what you're doing. That was number one. And grace does that. In 1 Corinthians 15, Paul talks about amazing grace of God that moves us to live for him. Number two, I welcome criticism. That one I put it in my list and I took off, then I put it in, then I took it off, and I kept saying to Spirit, do I put that on the list? And he would be saying, yes, Llew, keep it there, because you need to be humble and poor in spirit. So I'd keep it there. And then the third one was I value pastors and members. They are important to me. I'm here to help them, not to criticize or be their boss in any way. Number 4, I please God and make him proud of me. I need to be pure in heart. Number 5, I'm a catalyst for endemic trust. My aim is to be a peacemaker, to bring the church together. And by the way, when I went to Egypt, I didn't want to go. I'd accepted a call to come and work in, of all places, Ireland. David Neal was the president here then. And I asked him, David, could I come and work in Ireland? I had been president of the Church of Scotland for 10 years. And I was a bit tired of pen pushing and papers and stuff like that. And I wanted to have I wanted to be church pastor because I felt those were my gifts, to be a pastor. And so I made up this list. And then the division rang me one day and said, Llew, and this was about a month before a conference, a session, a union session when they would re-elect leaders. And I contacted the BUC president and said, do not put my name forward because I've had enough of 10 years of administrative work. I want to go into church pastoral work. And I had come across here, David brought me across to a number of retreats. And I enjoyed it so much and got on so well with these people. That wasn't Belfast, by the way, that I just loved it. And I wanted to go there. But I said, why of all places, Egypt? He said, because the church in Egypt is completely split. They're actually trying to break away from the union and make a separate church from the union, part of the union. And I said, what? And they said, so that's why we know you have a belief in peacemaking. So we want you to go there. So I went for one weekend because they had a one day, a couple of hour session to choose the new leader. And I went there, and the first thing I did on the day before, I said to the treasurer, can you show me the flat that I'll be staying in? My wife wants me to get an idea of it so we know what to bring. He said, well, it's upstairs. I said, I guess that. Can you take me up? He said, no, I can't. I said, why can't you take me up to see the flat? Because the president is there. I said, is he that scary? He says, as far as he's concerned, you are not coming here. Oh, so I said, but you can go upstairs. So I went upstairs, knocked on the door, and the man came. I'd never met him before. Opened and says, who are you? What do you want? Very gruff. And I said, well, I'm supposed to be sitting to become the new president. He said, you will not become the president. I am the president. I will stay the president. I said, okay. So, but can I still look around the flat just to see, give me an idea, so just in case I come. And I said, by the way, I'm happy not to come because I've got this place in Ireland that I want to go to work in. And he said, oh, you can look around. So very gruff. I looked around, and as I left, he said, you will not be coming back here. You understand that? Okay. I said, thank you very much. And off I went. The next day they had this session, and I was sitting next to the secretary of the union, and he understood some of the Arabic that was going on. And I said, I don't understand what they're saying. So he said that they're discussing you and him. And I said, okay, what's going to happen? He says, they're going to vote, and the one they vote is the nominated. So I sat there thinking, am I going to Ireland or am I staying? And the union secretary turned to me and says, you're in, Llew, you won. And I went, oh, no, I didn't want to go. But I kept true to my values to be a catalyst for endemic trust. And when pastors came in with their complaints, and Egyptians are very volatile people. I love them for their honesty. They speak honestly and straight to your face. And I could tell you a number of stories about things I learned from their culture, which helped me bring into my culture. But these are the values I put down. And one of them was to build trust. And they would come into my office and say, and blow up at me. And I'd say, just a minute. Please read my. I had the values printed out on a double A4 sheet, in big print, and put them on the glass on my desk. And I said, please read my values here. And they'd read them and say, you welcome criticism? Yes, I said. If you can criticize me and help me do better, I welcome it because I want to do better. And you value the pastors? Do you value the pastors more than the decisions of the union? Yes, I said I do. I will fight for the pastors when I go to the union. And on a couple of occasions, I had to fight for my pastors because the union had rules that were really good for union officers, but not for pastors at a work level. And pure in heart, I wanted to bring trust. And the last value I had, keep asking the question, what would Jesus do? And that was this thirst after righteousness, the righteousness of his kingdom. So those are my values, and I live by those values. And you know what I had to do? Each night when I went to bed, I would look at my values and say, did I keep these today? Is there anything here that I didn't keep? And before I went to Egypt, Cara and I went to Egypt, I was keeping these in the UK. And a number of times in my prayers in the evening, I realized that I had been ungracious to somebody. And I would go back to that shop the next day and I'd say, excuse me, madam, I was very rude to you yesterday when I came in here. And she said, I remember you coming in, but I don't remember you being rude. You have every right to criticize. I said, no, I want to say that I'm very sorry for the way I treated you. She says, why are you doing this? And one of them said that. And I said, because that's not the kind of person I want to be. I want to be a peacemaker. I want to be a person who gives grace to people. And they'd go, well, you're amazing. We don't get a lot of people coming back and apologizing for us. Thank you so much. But I did this over and over. And, the hardest one for me was to welcome criticism. There'd be people who'd say, Llew, you could have preached that much better if you'd done this and this or that. And I'd go, initially, I'd say, well, what do you know about preaching? Inside, I'd say that. But then I'd say, tell me what I can do better. And they might say, use an illustration. Here's a good story that fits what you were trying. And I'd say, that is a really good story. I'm going to accept that and put it into my notes. Next time, I'm going to use that illustration. And that just helped me. Being critical or rejecting criticism doesn't help anybody. But welcoming criticism and being self-critical, and that's where I wonder if that's what Wesley was saying. Let me see, go back to the note again. Am I self-conscious? That's important to me. Am I conscious that I was unfair to somebody today? Or I put the union, the rules before the life of a pastor who served the church so faithfully. Now in retirement, they're criticizing that they're not getting this proper pension. And I would go to the union in Lebanon and I would argue. And I sometimes was able to change the union policy simply because I fought for my pastor. And I'd come back and they'd say, how'd you get on, Pastor Llew? And I'd say, well, we've got it. You've got that little amount that they were arguing over. So I had to ask myself, I'm not here to fight the union leaders. And I would tell them that. I'm fighting for my pastors. They're doing such a good job. And sometimes that message got across. So being self-critical, I think it's important. self-conscious? Was I fighting to make myself look like I was a good president, or was I fighting for the values that I hold towards my pastors? I'm not sure if I've answered the question or contributed even towards it, but do you have anything to add to that?
No,
Go
Joel,
ahead.
I'm with you to some extent. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, no worries at all. Okay, what did we get up to? Am I enjoying prayer? Well, we have got to enjoy prayer, guys. When we go to prayer, we're talking to our Abba. If you don't like talking to your daddy, then don't go to pray. But if you love talking to your daddy and throwing yourself into his arms, there was Bernard Manning, the Irish writer, talks about going to attend a home of a Jewish rabbi, and a group of them went, and they were talking together around the table. And the rabbi's little son of 4 years old got bored of this adult talk, and he wandered off around the room, and he was behind a settee and looking at a book that was behind there. Then suddenly he realized he couldn't. His father had stopped speaking. Someone else was. He realized he couldn't hear his dad. He couldn't see him, and he jumped up and ran towards the table, crying "Abba, Abba, 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 Abba!" And he threw himself into his arms and hugged him, and he was so happy to be back with his Abba. And Bernard Manning said, "That's what we're supposed to do. Every time we come to prayer, we throw ourselves into our Abba's arms, and say, God, Abba." And you know, the word Abba is only used 3 times in the Bible, never in the Old Testament. Maybe I'll do a prayer meeting that one night on that. Never in the Old Testament, but 3 times in the New Testament. And I won't go into that because I'm using up the material and the time. So are you enjoying prayer? If you're not, think of it as talking to your daddy. And you would be so disappointed with yourself if you didn't want to enjoy your dad's presence, particularly if he loved you to pieces. Okay, question number 9. When did I last speak to someone else of my faith? Number 10, do I pray about the money I spend on myself? Never thought of that. Do I get to bed on time and get up on time? There's a good one. I don't know why John Wesley put that in, but are you principled in your life, particularly if you're getting up to pray in the morning, like some do? Number 12, do I disobey God in anything? I wonder how many people thought of the Sabbath when they came to that. Number 13, do I insist upon doing something about which my conscience is uneasy, about which my conscience is uneasy? Number 14, am I defeated in any part of my life? Well, all of us, I believe, will confess, yes, I have. I have sinned in many parts of my life. It may be in very small things, something small like welcoming criticism, being humble and poor in spirit, being merciful, being pure in heart. Number 15, am I jealous, impure, critical, irritable, touchy, or distrustful at all? Boy, Wesley really put some tough questions. Am I jealous, impure, critical, irritable, touchy, or distrustful at all? I had a person working for me once, one of the pastors, who rang me up and said, and I was his president, he rang me up and said, Llew, please help me. I said, what's the problem? He said, I have a problem with pornography and I need help. And so he joined a Christian group to fight against pornography. And we prayed together about this issue. I don't know if he still is pure from that, but I was at least proud that he came to me and said, Llew, I'm impure at times in my marriage. I watch pornography. Number 16, how do I spend my spare time? Number 17, am I proud? That's part of the Sabbath school lesson the last couple of weeks. Number 18, do I thank God that I'm not as other people, especially as the Pharisees who despise the publican? Well, I had to think about that. I'm not like other people. Maybe I see people and think they're just a bowling ball and they crash into things all the time. But I need to think, God, Help me to be the humble person that you want, to recognize that I'm a publican as well. Number 19, is there anyone whom I fear, dislike, disown, criticize, hold a resentment toward, or disregard? If so, what am I doing about it? Number 20, do I grumble or complain constantly? And number 21, the last one, is Jesus real to me? Well, there's a question. Sometimes Jesus as a theology is real to us, but he's not real as my Abba. And when I read this stuff about the Abba, I now in my prayers, particularly with Karen, we call God Abba in our prayers. We try to picture ourselves throwing ourselves into his arms when we pray. Listen, the text that John Wesley put at the end of his list of questions is this: encourage one another daily, so that none of you may be hardened by sin's deceitfulness. Let me read that again. Encourage one another daily, so that none of you may be hardened by sin's deceitfulness. Have you found that sin is deceitful? You know, the devil likes to deceive us and tell us that's not true. God doesn't love you. Or you don't have to say that in your prayers. You don't have to say, sorry, Lord, for failing you. That you did fine. I was happy with what you did as well. Or whatever. But Lord, help my heart not to be hardened. So back to our prayer group. All right. To finish with, I need to finish, don't I, Ian?
That's correct. And just ask you to pray there for us. There were so many questions and food for thought there. So I ask you to pray to our Abba.
Okay. Yeah, lots of questions, but these are the sort of questions we need to ask ourselves. And there's nowhere safer to ask it when there's a group who are committed in love to each other and to our Abba Father together, like this group here, so Lord. And Lord, help me never to hold on to something that I'm not willing to ask the group to help me with, to know your love for me and love for each other. Father, bless our group, bless our homes, bless our families, bless our children. Thank you, Lord, for being our Abba. Please bless us tonight. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen.